Has Drake lost his touch? His last 3 albums have drawn marginal reviews and people are starting to ask, what happened to the old Drake?
I just pray for a day where Drake gets back to writing more focused albums.
Well, with his new album, For All the Dogs, that's exactly who Drake says he's bringing back. And to help him, he's brought back his production team who got him here in the first place. Guys like 40, Boy Wonder, Finals, and many more, all to help him build a sound that his fans will like again. So what do you think? Did it work? Is this album truly for all the dogs? Personally, when I played this album for a dog, he didn't seem all that interested.
The money is autonomous. Shout out Oliver North.
But when I played him my For All the Dog type beats, I don't want to brag or anything, but let's just say Drake should have called me for this album. But whatever your feelings are on this album, when you break down the beats on it, there are some really unique ideas. So today I want to talk about the creative production ideas on this album, what makes them so unique, and how you can use some of these ideas in your beats as well. And if this video gets at least 1,000 likes, I'll even drop my own highly anticipated album, For All the Ducks. Now let's start off with the first beat and what many people say is the best song on this album, First Person Shooter.
Big as the Super Bowl, but the difference is it's just 2 guys playing shit that they did in the studio.
And the producers on this beat really show off some cool sampling ideas. First off, this is the sample that was used for the beat.
That I'm the man for you.
Now after the sample gets pitched down 3 semitones, take a listen to how it sounds.
I'm the man for you.
Most of the sample is a guy singing alongside a piano, but there's another section in the sample that gets used for the actual beat. This part of the sample sounds much bigger. We have these strings and organs and horns, which helps the beat sound much more interesting and lush. Now when it comes to the actual chops that were used, there's something unique happening here as well. First off, there's a mix between forwards and backwards chops, which is something you don't see often. You probably didn't hear it there, so let me play it again. These 3 chops make up the core of the loop. You can see the first 2 were played backwards, whereas the last one was played forwards. But the part I find interesting is how fluid this sounds. The reason why you can hear is that we get a continuation of the vocal in the sample from the last chop back to the first one, and this helps the loop sound much more fluid. If we compare this to using a slightly different chop, one that didn't have a vocal as we loop back around, you can hear it feels more abrupt and less like a clean loop. So a really smart idea here in placing that chop to carry that vocal over. But you can see this beat is pretty much a 1-bar loop, and so we get another useful production idea in this beat so it isn't as repetitive. Here, once we bring in the bass pattern with our drums, this is one version of the loop, but this isn't the only bass pattern that's in this beat. We also have the second one, which has a different rhythm and timing, helping prevent the beat sound as stale. Overall, some really cool sampling and bassline ideas here. Another beat that I found impressive for the same reason is Amen. One thing that's unique about this beat is that the producers stick to the time signature of the original sample, found here. So here we have a sample that's in 3/4 and the beat is the same, meaning instead of having 4 beats for every bar like so, 1, 2, 3, 4, then back, we only have 3 beats per bar. 1, 2, 3, then back. Now what I find unusual about this beat is how the sample is used, partly because of which chops are made and what's actually omitted. Take a look at what's going on and pay attention to the cursor in the sample. You can see instead of using the sample just as a loop, we have certain parts that get skipped over. Not to mention, we also have some chops that are slowed down. and others that are sped up. But one other thing that jumped out to me is how many producers obsess over getting every sound in the sample on time and on grid with zero imperfections. But you can see if we examine what's going on in the waveform of this beat, we have sounds play at off times. Like here we have a hi-hat that's not on grid and is sticking out. Same with this one over here. These sounds are kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it's not a problem once all the other drums get added in to mask these small imperfections. So if you're a sample-based producer, just know that small imperfections like this won't instantly ruin your beat all the time. After this, we have that big 808 that comes in and really helps provide a strong progression for the beat. As you heard with the drums in the sample, it's harder to get a feel for the music. But once that 808 comes in, it really helps provide the musical direction for the song. So don't feel like the sample has to carry all the weight for every beat that you make. Now the beat that had everyone talking, especially when it first came out, was Virginia Beach. And so here's how this beat was put together. The part that gets used is this huge part full of orchestral strings and singing, which is pitched up 5 semitones. And what the producers do for this beat is play this in reverse and just create a few chops that occur on the note changes. And for the most part, that's it for the sample, alongside the drums with a pretty intricate hi-hat pattern and the 808. But the part I appreciate about this beat is the sample itself, which is this. It's a Frank Ocean song from around 10 years ago. And oftentimes I see snobbery when it comes to sampling, where certain people say that you must sample songs that are from the 70s and older. But here we see the producers using a contemporary sample. And before you start looking down on them, just remember J Dilla. One of the greatest sample-based producers to do it made this beat in the 90s, which sampled this song, also from the 90s. So if you're ever in need of a sample, don't be afraid to look for songs just from a few years ago, even if the sample snobs get their undies in a bunch. And finally, the last beat that I want to look at is one that's really cool to see, 8 AM in Charlotte.
The money speaking for itself, I call it fortune tell. 5 top from a bitch that work at corporate sales.
Which was produced by Conductor Williams, who actually has his own YouTube channel. I suggest you check it out because he breaks down his beats all the time on his channel. Maybe he'll break down this one, but until then, you're stuck with me. So here is a sample that was used. And just like we talked about, this sample is from 2023, but it sounds like it was from the 60s or 70s. So again, don't feel like sample stubbornness is gonna get in your way. You can find great samples everywhere. But here's how this beat was made. It's pretty raw. We have just one chop played 3 times, and the last time it gets used, it just runs for longer. But there are a couple of things about this beat that I find interesting. For one, to make a short switch up, Conductor drops the drums out from the beat, but he also does something else. He uses a different piece from the sample as well. And I like this because oftentimes I see some laziness from other producers where they just keep the same loop playing, drop the drums, and call that a switch up. So it was cool to see some extra effort done for this one. But what I also like are the drums themselves. We've talked about this before. Conductor Williams is probably most known for his work with Griselda up to late, making more modern boom bap beats. And we see some influence of modern boom bap with this beat, which is something I've covered a lot of in the past. So if you like this beat, I'd recommend checking out the video next to me. It will help you learn more about this style of beat. But yeah, those are some cool ideas inside of Drake's latest album that I really enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts on this album, drop them down below. If you've enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time.